Hey, good morning, Bobcats. Welcome back to the Startup Stories podcast. It's been a minute. Thanks for tuning in. We're here every Wednesday, 9 a.m. sharp. Fresh entrepreneurial insights, intakes, good stuff. Last week, we dove in with Milo Pachorik, good friend of mine. He's a great guy, even better DJ. He DJs for weddings. And, last week, we dived into some of the lessons that he learned along the way. We really dived into sort of like client relationships and like how important that is for his business specifically. There's some good lessons there, some super juicy stuff. So if you haven't already, go check out last week's episode. Today, I'm super excited to introduce an entrepreneur who honestly, I don't know too much about his business. Okay. It basically it's a business model that revolves around staffing and recruitment efforts to aid current military service members who are trying to transition into civilian employment. So yeah, please welcome Luke Boatman.
Hey, thank you for having me. I just want to say thank you to you and the center for having me. This is a really cool podcast that y'all do, so I'm excited to be here.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So I just want to dive right in. So let's get started with your background in business. So could you explain a little bit about how the business works, like what it is, and how the idea came to you?
Yeah, so I'll talk about my background first. I've kind of been involved with entrepreneurial activities ever since high school. When I was a sophomore in high school, I started doing flooring installations for apartments and townhomes, trying to it was a lot of hard work.
What was it, like a subcontractor
gig?
Yeah,
okay. Exactly. If you know what like make readies are, it's just a term from the industry, but it just means once one person moves out, we come in and fix all the messed up carpet and install the new hardwood and stuff like that for the next people coming in. But after that, I tried to start a valet trash business here in Austin with one of my friends. That was very difficult.
Valet trash?
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually worked as a valet trash technician for a while, and then I was like, I could do this myself, Apartments are very political, so it's actually a very different industry. So that didn't work out long term, but it was a fun thing to try. And most recently, I started doing freelance sales contracting, and that's where I found the most success. I actually ended up working with a Houston-based construction company and help them expand their branches to Austin and San Antonio. And I was their only salesman out here. And I just did a contract gig with them, and it was a lot of fun. But now I've moved on to this military staffing, which is a lot more work than anything I've done so far. But it's really transferable with the sales that I was doing, just in the sense that I have to talk to people all day, and I have to convince them to listen to me. But so how the business works is I'm a certified government contractor. So the Department of Defense has a contract with my company where I'm supposed to create training regimens and career development for active military members who have like 3 to 6 months left of their contract. And this is from just enlisted people to officers all the way up. Anybody can take it and get out.
Okay.
But so what we do is we work with other companies like managements and admins to make training plans so that we can match, military members who have similar experiences. Because, none of them they don't really have degrees. They don't have like civilian certificates. They have things that are specific to the military. So we kind of find that overlap and make these training regimens for them to come in. But they get paid their regular military salary, but they're allowed to stop working for the military. So they're getting paid their regular salary the whole time for this 3 to 6 month process, but they actually get to go and start their civilian careers beforehand.
Gotcha. So do they make money through the civilian career?
No, so they're not allowed. That's the one big thing. They're not allowed to get paid, but they're also not allowed to pay anything else. Like we can't take anything, and me can't take anything, and the corporations they work with can't take anything from the service member. But the service member, so we can't take money from them, charge them a fee or anything, and we can't pay them anything either. They have to only maintain their military salary. That's just a part of the contract.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's kind of the only way for businesses nowadays to get free internships like they used to back in the old days, because now internships are so expensive, like you have to pay people $15-20 an hour full time for 3 months for a summer, but
Right.
so it's really cool that it's one of the few ways you can actually still get a free internship as a company.
Interesting. Okay. How did the idea sort of come to you?
Uh,
Or how'd you learn about it? It seems like a very niche thing.
Yeah, it's super niche. I was doing a little bit in staffing before I knew anything about this program. And it was
And
mostly,
staffing is just recruitment?
yeah, for the most part. And honestly, yeah, recruitment is a better word because a lot of it, we do have like a side construction business. And so a lot of that was just recruiting people into those positions to get work done.
Okay.
So I guess I have a lot of experience of connecting people together. Yeah, that's about the
Gotcha.
most experience I had in staffing. But what made me get into it is I wanted to kind of build a staffing software, kind of like Indeed or something similar to that.
Uh-huh.
But because all my friends, I mean, none of my friends could get jobs, and they were all like really hardworking. They all had like they were viable candidates, and none of them could get jobs. So it made me realize that there's always going to be people looking for work, and so it was a good business to start. But one of our other founders, he went through this program through the Department of Defense. He was in the military, and he just finished his internship about a year ago now. That he went through a different company, and he actually learned how to do like plumbing and everything like that. That was his career development that he decided to go with. But after that, he was like, hey, let's found a company to do this. So he does
Forget
a lot
plumbing.
of yeah. And he actually does plumbing for us on the construction side because he prefers to do all that as opposed to the staffing and recruitment.
Interesting. So the business has two sides, construction and
Yeah.
staffing?
So this little shirt you see right here, this logo is the main logo of our business, Botex Private Contracting. And that's basically just a holding company for the two businesses, one being BTX Construction and the other being Bridgepoint Solutions, which is the staffing agency that I'm in charge of.
Okay. For Botex Construction, so that's the thing that you started before Bridgepoint?
Yes.
Okay. And that's still ongoing?
Yes. I'm pretty out of the running for that. Like I don't manage the operations of that at all. I just do some of the financials.
Okay.
But I'm the president of Bridgepoint Solutions. I have full control over that, and I'm the one putting in all the effort there. It's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Okay. Well, was there like a specific point? How did you realize that this was like a fully viable business model?
Well, like I said, everybody needs a job, and everybody's
Yeah.
always looking for a job, and it's really easy to convince people to help veterans, because I mean, I feel like growing up, we all see the Vietnam veterans experiencing homelessness and stuff like that. Like, I feel like as a country, we've kind of let things get to we've let it get bad for people like that. So it's really easy to remind people that the only reason they had an opportunity to work and to be in a nice, safe business is because people weren't, And so I always knew it would be easy to get military people like in contact with others. But as terms of like a viable business, like I said, the other guy that helped found us went through this program, and it was really, really helpful for him because he straight out of high school enlisted in the military. He was there for 6-7 years and then came out, and literally nobody would talk to him because he was in the military and then cast away,
Yeah.
tiny cog in a really big machine kind of thing. So it was more of like a desire to force it to work, than anything.
It sounds like most of the value here is from helping these military people like really get placed versus sort of the training. Would you agree or like disagree with that?
I think it goes a little bit both ways. The placement, obviously, without the placement, it doesn't matter if we have a training plan or not. So
Yeah.
I would absolutely agree. And getting these people placed is really important because it's what actually not only helps them get experience, but it's the only thing that helps the company as well. Because it's a good business because it helps both sides. It helps the military members get where they need to be, but it also helps these corporations save money and train new employees for a fraction of the cost, because that's the most expensive part about hiring is you have to train somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. And for 3 months, you're paying them a full salary to not be useful,
Yeah, it sounds like it's so much work. In my mind, I'm trying to like picture sort of how this business model even works. Do you like kind of find corporations first, like, and create training regimens based off of that for military people, or do you just have uniform training? Like, how do you come up with the training?
So the training I work with, the first thing I did was I got in contact with corporations. And honestly, if I could go back, I would have done that a lot more because I only got like one or two, and I was like, all right, we got this. Let's roll.
How much work did it take to get that one or two?
Oh, so
Nightmare.
much work. It truly was because I mean, I have a lot of experience in sales, which was helpful to me, but you can talk to anybody who's in staffing, recruiting, or sales. I mean, nobody wants to talk to you. They don't want to give you the time of day. These managers, and I get it, they're busy. They have their own jobs. They have their own bosses. They have to get their work done for, but nobody wants to give you the time of day. So it was brutal getting those first ones. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and then those corporations sort of created the training regimens for you, or like inspired them, or
So a part of what we do is I kind of get full say as to if I even send this corporation any military members.
okay.
Obviously they pay me a fee for a service based on if I place somebody.
And then that's where the revenue comes from.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. But in the sense that if I think it's not a viable company, or if I think it's a company that's just trying to get cheap, quick labor, I'm not going to send people there, because if there's not a high chance of these military members getting like full-time employment after the internship, then it's not worth it to me, because I'm not actually helping anybody. And if I continue to do that, I lose the contract, like the Department of Defense they keep track of that stuff.
Gotcha.
And so if I were to keep just sending people to this company, and every time the internship's over, they kick them aside and ask me for a new one, like I can't keep sending them there, not that I would want to, but I literally cannot,
How is the demand on that? Are there like tons of corporations trying to look for companies like yours to put them in contact with military?
Honestly, no. It's really unknown. I think the program is relatively new. And most people, I think, so with the program, if you get on this contract, the requirement is like, if you have 1 through 50 employees, like you're a small business, then you only have to take in 1 per year, which is that's almost nothing, and that's the minimum requirement.
And what is this requirement for?
So this is like, say you're a plumbing business and you want to start hiring exclusively through the military, and you actually get this same contract that I have. So you can have, I guess it's not the exact same contract, because mine's specifically for staffing and recruitment, but they can have, like you say, this blanket training plan that they submit to the Department of Defense, and then the Department of Defense just throws them military members, and if that's,
okay.
So if that's the case, then they really limit that. So they will say you're required to take 1 on per year if that's your.
I see. So there's demand for this, just that they've been going through it through like for military service labor. They've been going about it in a different way. Absolutely. And now the government's trying to push that onto like more of like a sort of public-private mix.
Exactly. So I think companies like mine are going to start coming out pretty crazy, just simply because the Department of Defense isn't trying to waste very much money right now. People are kind of breathing down everybody's necks in the government right now. So that's a big thing. Yeah. But so, for example, like these plumbing companies, so just using that as an example, if this plumbing company would go out and they keep getting all these interns, actually, let's go back. If this plumbing company even wanted to get in this program, it takes a lot of time to even be viable for that contract, to be eligible to even like.
Really? So companies that even attempt this are committed.
Oh yeah. And that's why I feel like you see, if you have an established business, like that's already making you a lot of revenues, you're probably not going to flip the script and then spend, a year and a half trying to get this contract. Because I mean, not that I think it'd be a bad idea for companies to do that, but it's just so much work.
So you need a contract on both sides.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's a really cool thing. I enjoy it. I do. And I get to meet a lot of really cool people through it. These people. Oh,
you ever like ask them about their war stories?
Yeah, some of them, and not all of them have seen like firefights and everything, and because it's pretty cool. A lot of these people who come through this program are very well prepared. like they're looking to start their life. Like for example, I'm working with this one guy who wants to get into cybersecurity. He's been in the military for 10 years and he's real smart. So he never went out and saw firefights and everything. They just stuck him in a computer room and he was doing like hacking and everything like that. So he's trying to get into cybersecurity, and that's been my most recent efforts. And that's a lot of work.
I mean, it sounds like there would be some good demand there.
There is. The problem is it's all being outsourced. And
what do you mean?
It's being outsourced to different companies or countries. I'm sorry. So cybersecurity, and I didn't know this until I started really doing this dive with this guy, but there's not a lot of like US based. Well, there's a lot of US based firms, but they all outsource to like India and other places, like
labor wise.
Exactly. And so they don't want to spend more money keeping domestic people, So they could do this internship, save a bunch of money, train this guy, but then they're not going to want to hold on to him because his salary is going to be more expensive than outsourcing it.
Gotcha.
But with this contract, they have to remain domestic. Like I can't go and staff anybody internationally while they get paid a DoD fee, their DoD salary, So everything has to remain domestic.
Okay. How long have you been doing this?
So this specific business, the longest part was the application process. And that took us over a year in the making, but we got approved at the end of November last year. And so from that to now, so good, like about 4 months is the only time I've actually been working through this program with military members. But before that, it was all just the application process.
Okay. How do you approach military members?
Oh yeah. That's actually a good question. Cause that was something we were kind of scared about at first because it's really hard to get on base, and they don't really have, like career fairs and stuff like that on base. And also, we have to deal with their direct commands. They're not allowed to make their own decisions. They have signed away all their rights to that to the government. They don't get to make their own decisions. They don't get to choose where they live. They don't get to do pretty much anything of their own accord. And so you have to remember that it works like a business, the military does. So these direct commands are their bosses. And how often do you think a boss is going to want to get rid of one of his employees while still paying them?
Not very often.
Not very often. And they have to fill that position. And I mean, they want to help these people, because obviously it's all military. They all respect each other. They know what they've been through, but they don't want to just give people away like that, So that's been the hardest part, is getting these commands to not be so pushed back against it. But recently we're actually bringing on a guy in July, and he's going to do sales for us. So he's going to do sales and lead generation. So I'm going to train him in sales for our construction company. And then he's also going to do lead generation for me on the Bridgepoint side. So he's going to be getting me connected with a lot of the people he has within the military.
Oh, okay, cool.
Just people he's known and came up with throughout his experience there. Yeah.
So it sounds like it's a lot of like word of mouth kind of getting business.
Yeah. And it's more word of mouth, for the like service member side,
right?
Because there's not a huge amount of draw. Like the military isn't advertising this program exclusively, like, or exceedingly, I guess is a better word, because then they're just paying a bunch of people to leave and not work, I
mean, there has to be a way that I guess like it comes with scale, right? Like of course right now it's probably not viable, but have you thought about like maybe scaling up the marketing to like go to base, like for like, because there has to be like one day of the year in which they put on like a career fair or something. Like I know you said that they don't, but they got to have one day.
You're totally right. You are totally right. And actually, that was something we were trying to find out and look into, and it was really, really hard because the information's just not really out there, But the guy, Austin, I'll give him a name, the guy who helped found our corporation that was in the military. He went on, not a vacation, but he went home to Amarillo so we could see his grandma and help her like do some construction on her house and everything. And he just ran into commander, just like at a grocery store.
Like
and
his commander?
No, just a high up commander.
And he just knew that he was a commander.
I guess he was wearing his blues or something. I'm not sure. And but he calls me later and he's telling me that he had this conversation with the guy and that he brought up Skill Bridge is what the program is called. And this guy's eyes just like lit up, the commander. And he started like immediately exchanging information and everything, because exactly like you said, they have like 1 or 2 a year of these career fair type things for this exact program.
Oh, wow.
And it was total luck, which, makes me feel like I'm in the right place,
Yeah.
Yeah. So total luck that happened. So we got in contact with him, and that's something we're actually working on right now, is getting on base for that. We just have to jump through a lot of hoops with the military.
Dude,
that's
yeah.
just how it is.
It sounds like there's an incredible amount of challenges. Yeah. Have you streamlined any of these processes down?
Yeah. So, and I guess streamlined might not be the best word for what I'm about to talk about, but so our onboarding process, we had to get really uniformed really quickly, because we started.
Can you specify the onboarding process?
Yeah. So there's a lot of information we need from the military members before we can, because I mean, like, everything's paperwork. Literally everything I do is paperwork, and then sales. So we have to get a lot of direct information from them. They have certain like serial numbers that represent their contracts with the military and their ending dates and stuff like that, and their direct commands that we have to deal with. So we have to get a lot of information from them before we can start anything. But another part of that is we wanted to find ways not just to staff military members, but to really put them where they want to be. So we take a lot of information, and we always interview them before we get anything started. We interview them and then send out this onboarding form. But we figure out what industry they're trying to get into, what part of the U.S. they are wanting to live in, because ideally we can get you both, right. where you want to work and where you want to live. Doesn't always work out that way, but ideally that's what we get to do. But we were really scattered when we first started, because like we got approved out of nowhere. It was like radio silence for a long time, and then finally got approved out of nowhere. And so we just started jumping on things. I started calling people, cold calling all day. And I wish I could have go back and slowed down a little bit and planned a little more. But we knew really quickly we were going to have to get really uniformed in the way that we did things, because you can't have varying experiences between people, or your reputation doesn't matter. Like that
I feel
word
like
of mouth.
Service is just an industry where experiences vary. Like that's just the name of the game.
And absolutely, like, I agree. And I'm glad you think that, because I feel like there's already been one guy that I was trying to work with, and just I couldn't get a company to get with me on it. I could not staff him for the life of me. And I felt terrible about it, because I mean, he really wanted to be a part of the program. And, it keeps you up at night a little bit about that stuff. Really? But
so you've had some tough conversations.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was because of those tough conversations that I realized we had to get really uniformed with how we did things. Excuse me. Because whether good or bad, I have to make sure I treated you with the exact same like respect and effort that I did the guy I was successful with. I can't have you thinking that I was slacking off one day and that's why you didn't get a job, or something like that. So we had to kind of streamline that process and get it, I guess streamlined, no, but uniformity. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of hoops to jump through for sure.
Yeah. Well, what would you recommend to someone who has to have one of those tough conversations?
This is going to sound a little weird, but rip the Band-Aid off. You have to remember, like, I'm younger than a lot of these people I'm dealing with, these military members usually. So, but I'm in this sense in like a higher place of power for what we're dealing with, like I'm in charge of where they go, relatively. And so I have to remember that they're adults and they need the answers now so that they can plan their life. You got to rip that Band-Aid off. Don't beat around the bush and like think, okay, I've got 2 days to get this staffing and recruiting thing together. I can do this. Like at that point, you might not be able to do this, and you need to let them know ahead of time. So I would just say honesty is always the best policy with that. And the only time at least in my opinion, the only time you're going to feel like you're not doing right by them is if you didn't actually try that hard. That hard conversation is only much harder on you if you feel like you're to blame. Like if you really put all the effort there and you still couldn't make it happen, that hard conversation isn't that hard, Yeah.
Tough.
It is.
How many clients have you worked with so far?
So on the service member side, 4 now. We've got about one per month since we started, on average. As for corporations, we have staffed 3.
Okay.
We have staffed with 3 different corporations or companies. Yeah.
What does the fee look like from those corporations?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's based on the position that we fill. It's typically a percentage of the salary of like 1 year's salary of the position that we fill.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So obviously, like, if let's go back to plumbing company. If I staff this guy with a new plumber, those apprentices make like $26 an hour right off the bat, and they work a lot of overtime. These interns, I'm glad I came back to that. These interns can't work overtime. They get 40
so
hours
just
a week,
40.
and that's it. Because they're still getting their salary, their 40 hours a week salary. So we're like overtime is out of the question for them, since they can't get paid by the company.
Right.
But so lost my train of thought there. If they go in, we would take that $25 an hour average, multiply it 40 hours a week for the duration of their internship there.
And then that's their salary?
Correct. Yeah.
And then a percentage of that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, and even from that basic math, you can see we're saving the companies a lot of money.
Yeah.
Immediately I'm saying, okay, this is how much it would cost you. I'm going to charge you this, So, yeah.
And they get a full-time employee out of it.
Hopefully.
It sounds like, there's value on both sides here.
Yeah. And that is definitely what made me realize it was a good business to pursue, because I am getting paid, but I'm getting paid by the company that I'm saving money, and I'm just helping a service member get their life started 3 months earlier,
Yeah.
And so it's a good business value for sure.
What do you think is the biggest challenge that your clients have faced when transitioning from military to civil employment?
College degrees.
Really?
Oh man.
It's just expected from these corporations still?
And it's not expected from military members, but it's expected from most of these companies that if they're going to hire somebody, they have to have that degree, and I get it from like a company sense, because that degree shows that you showed up on time for 4 years, and did your thing.
I don't know about on time.
And yeah, me either. But, and I kind of just have to break through, because keep in mind, a lot of these managers that I work for, like, they're managers, but they're not necessarily in charge, and so they're still following whatever somebody else is telling them to do. And if that other person is saying yes, has to have a degree, there's not a lot of movement there, but the ability to really sit down with these people and talk to them and make them realize that a college degree is significantly less than, in my opinion, like in showing discipline, it shows so much less than the military, especially like these people who've been in there for like 6 or 8 years,
Right.
Like, you think going to college is more discipline than
Than
the military,
yeah.
like where you get thrown in the brig if you don't go to work and stuff like that, So that's something I try to make sure people understand for sure.
What do you think about, like, how do you think motivation and consistency has played into business or starting your own business?
So obviously, I think with most people, and with me included, motivation is kind of what makes you start, but it can be detrimental to your business. Like, you can't rely on motivation to do work, because motivation is going to come and go. It's got to be discipline. If you wake up one morning and you're having a great day and you're really excited to do this work, you're probably going to be really productive that day, But if you wake up, you slept terribly, maybe something else is going on in life, maybe you've got other things to focus on, like, you're going to have a bad day at work, and that's not really fair to whoever's relying on you, So you can't rely on motivation to do business. You have to rely on discipline and routine.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think is the most important thing when starting a business?
Do the research. There's a lot of people who start businesses, and then there's other people who call themselves entrepreneurs. There's a lot of different ways to do both. But you really have to do the research on what you're dealing with, because like I said, I tried the flooring installation business. I tried my valet trash business, and both were unsuccessful because I did not do the research prior. Like I said, I worked as a valet trash, and I thought, I can do this.
But you do think that, like, both business models work, right?
Oh, absolutely. the fact that valet trash exists today is proof that it works.
What is valet trash?
So it's like when so it's basically a door-to-door garbage man for apartment complexes. So people don't have to take their trash to. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's a really big. It's actually really saturated, and obviously, like in places like San Marcos, probably not so much because you have a lot of students who are trying to pay the least amount as possible. They're not going to pay that extra fee,
Right. Like
but
Austin.
In saturated markets like Austin, San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, like they're really popular, especially with you get to the luxury apartments where people don't want to touch their trash. They don't want to walk all the way to the garbage dump, and everything like that. So, and I get it, it's a good service. Yeah. People found a problem and fixed it, so that definitely works.
I mean, just thinking about it, like so much demand on each floor,
Oh yeah, it's exhausting. I mean, I did it for a year. It was a lot of work.
Was it good money?
Yeah, it wasn't bad at all. I mean,
do you think that it could like be done as like a side hustle or?
Yes, 100%. Because you only do it at nightlike.
Oh,
only do it at nighttime, or at least where I was working.
Do you have to knock, or is it like a subscription service?
Like a subscription service, they all pay it as a fee with their monthly rent, and the apartment pays out your service fee to you.
Gotcha.
And so people would put you have designated trash cans that they leave their trash in, put it on their front porch or right outside the door, and you come back, just take the trash, throw it in a bag, keep going.
Yeah.
And I mean, it definitely works. People do it all over the place, but I did not do research into how to do business with apartment complexes. Like I said earlier, they're pretty political in a way that I did not understand because I didn't do the research, and that ended up biting me pretty bad. So apartments, and depending on if you're working with like equal housing opportunities or different things like that, obviously you're not going to get a lot of valet trash business at equal opportunity housing and stuff like that. But they all have different management companies that take care of them that require vendors to be listed on like a database. So you have to spend money every month to be on this database to even be an applicable vendor for them. But then you still have to do the sales calls and convince them to do business with you.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. It's way like that. I had no idea that it was like that, and so that was why I was really unsuccessful there, because I was going in and doing cold calls for no reason. I was going in and doing sales calls for literally no reason.
And how you're 22, right?
Yes.
When did you do the sales job and when did you do the valet business?
Yeah. So the valet business came right before the sales job because through the valet trash business, I want to say that was probably 3 years ago is when I started doing that. Not the technician, but starting my own.
Yeah.
I started that and did that for probably 9 months of pure unbridled, mistakes, and so that was really rough, but I learned so much about the apartment industry through that right after I jumped into that sales gig, because I'd already been doing it for 9 months. I'd kind of ripped off the Band-Aid.
What was the sales gig?
So I just did my own sales support, freelance contracting. So I would reach out to, and I targeted specifically, apartment-based construction companies. So like they call it multifamily commercial construction. That's what the industry is called. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I would find a pretty established company, not super established, about right in the middle, and I would go and I would tell them about my experiences and what I've done and what I'm trying to do for them. And a lot of times they already have salespeople who are going out and doing these things. So if they don't have to pay me a salary, they don't have to pay me benefits, I'm just coming onto the team to help, it's really not that bad of a deal at all for them, especially if I'm getting results. And so I started doing that right after, because I had learned a lot about the apartment industry, and it was a lot of fun. I actually was I was really success,ful in that.
What made you stop?
I got busy.
So it is something that you would consider going back into.
Yeah, and I do offer it as a service to this day,
Oh, that's what the second business is?
I guess you would say third, but yes.
Okay.
So the freelance sales contracting is something that I used to do, and then I jumped into staffing because it's just a sales gig, like it's fun, and salesmen, they do have a good life, like the company would send us on like happy hours, right? And where we go and meet up with apartment like maintenance teams. And so we would go and just hang out and have a couple drinks, and talk to these maintenance teams, and then just, convince them to use our company for the big repairs. And so it was a really good gig, and I just got like a day rate, and then I got to write off my expenses and my miles and gas and everything like that. So it's was good for me because I wasn't making commissions. So like right off the bat, when I was having a little trouble, I was still getting paid. But
Gotcha.
then I guess it kind of overlaps to the point where it's no longer worth it because then I'm making a lot of sales and not getting any commissions, you know? And so that's
Right.
probably what drove me away from it is I was just doing a lot and getting a
Sure.
little. So yeah.
Do you think that those past experiences helped your current business?
Oh yeah.
How so?
Well, you have to do sales. If you're going to start your own business, sales is the whole thing. I mean, even big corporations like Pepsi or Coke, like they spend half of all of their revenues on marketing for the products, you know, like, and that's real. There's a reason they do that. It's not just because they're a big corporation and that's how it goes, you know, it's
Mm-hmm.
because you genuinely have to market 24/7. You have to be doing sales calls all the time because people aren't just going to find you, you know, people aren't
Yeah.
just going to do a Google search. You're going to be the first thing that pops up. They call you and you do business. Like it's not going to happen. So, it's by far the most important thing I learned is just how to talk to people and convince them to deal with you, you know?
Yeah. What do you think is like the main lesson or key piece of information that you learned from sales? I mean, you said getting people who don't want to work with you to work with you.
Yeah. And that would be a big one is just like be so persistent. Just,
Persistence.
yeah,
Okay.
be a tack on the seat, you
What if they
know?
say no? Just
And the thing is, and this is actually, I'm glad you said that. This is something I learned is they're almost never just going to say no. People hate saying no. Like they just hate to say directly, no, I will not do business with you. It's so difficult for people to say that they'll beat around the bush in a bunch of different ways. Like, oh, I don't know that we're ready for that right now, or I don't know that this is something we're looking for, or
and you
we
just keep
have. Oh
going.
yeah, if you don't tell me no, I don't have to. I don't have to stop. if and you have to know how to like take that with a grain of salt. You know, like if they're obviously not going to do business with you, but they don't want to say no, don't sit there and pester them because you're burning a bridge before you can build it. You know,
Mm.
like if you're a persistent salesperson is one thing, but if you're an aggravating and annoying salesperson is a totally different thing. Like
What do you think the line is?
it's hard to tell. So I'm an extroverted person. I've kind of got the gift of gab to me. So I'm lucky in that sense, but you have to be able to read people because everybody's going to be different. Different managers are going to behave differently. Sometimes you can walk in and you know they're not going to deal with you just by the way they look at you, you know? And then sometimes you go in and somebody's all excited and they're ready to do business and you're like, oh, this is going to be easy. And then they still say no, you know, like
Yeah.
it's, you have to be able to read the room and read who you're dealing with because everybody is going to have their own line between professional and business that they like to do work, you know? And some people are going to be way more personal. Some people are going to be way more professional. And I think you really have to get good at walking into a room and knowing where that line is. And you can kind of fidget around and figure out exactly where it lies, but like you have to have a good idea when you walk in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone looking to enter your?
For staffing specifically,
I guess it'd be rough because the whole contract
man,
silence period.
the silence period is really what gets you because you like you feel a little disrespected, you know, because you jump through hoops for months, you know,
Yeah.
and you do everything they ask and you get these certificates, you take these ethics courses, you know,
Mm.
and then they just go radio silent for months after you get your application done. But it's because a lot of people are probably applying, you know, you just got to give people benefit of the doubt and you got to just don't let radio silence like break your heart. You know, you got to stick to it and just hope for the best. You know, that's the best thing is just hope. Just hope something's going to go well. But for people getting into staffing, I think it's a fantastic thing to get into. A lot of businesses are constantly hiring. I mean, they get tax benefits from hiring over a year, but staffing corporations do really well. And I think they're really, really important because there are so many different ways that you can apply different degrees to different jobs or different experiences to different jobs. You know, like there are some advertising or marketing students that would be terrible salespeople, but maybe they'd be a great bank teller or maybe they'd be a great, you know, like you have to understand who people are at their core and how their brain works, not just what the paper says about them.
Yeah. What's a mistake that you made early on that you would want others to avoid?
You have to scale properly. Uh, don't jump the gun at all. Like I definitely jumped the gun on this because I was excited to get, I was excited to get started. Like I said, after that waiting period, they said yes, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. But it turned into a bigger issue because I didn't do the proper planning. So I feel like I've spent a lot of my time proving legitimacy to both sides of the coin, to companies that I'm trying to work with and to service members, because I didn't have like a plethora of either. Like if I was to go to the service members and try to get them to join, and I had like this massive list of companies that work with me, it's no problem. That's a super easy thing to show somebody and convince. But if I've got 2 or 3 and I'm actively trying to get more, and I've also got like 5 or 6 service members trying to get more, like both sides are a little iffy. So that would be,
want to like set up each side beforehand,
or at least choose one, and it's hard to say, choose one and then work on the other, because a lot of companies, maybe they don't want to do business with you because you can't get started right away, or service members don't want to do business with you because you don't have a bunch of companies lined up already. And so if I could go back, I would have chosen one to focus on, because it kind of builds your sales plan and marketing for you there. Because if I had a plethora of service members ready to go and I approach a company, they're going to have a hard time pulling me away from that. They're going to have a hard time saying no when I can prove I can save you money and I got plenty of people ready to go. And even the other side of that, if I had like I said, a list of companies and go to service members, they're going to be ready to hop on, So if I could have gone back and chose one, that's a big one. Yeah.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
What's like an underrated skill that you would recommend or that's helped you succeed so far?
Underrated skill. I kind of get a little bit obsessive about things, right? And so whenever you can kind of direct your brain to obsess over the right projects, you can have a lot of really quick success. But underrated skill, that's not really fair to say is a skill that I'm a little OCD about things, but I feel like you really have to be able to talk to people. Like you're not going to be successful starting up a business if you're really introverted. And I don't say that to like push away introverts from starting businesses or anything like that. You have to recognize it's a big part about startups. Like you have to be able to talk to people, and you should be good at that. At some point in your life, you're going to need to just talk to people all the time. You're going to be an adult. You got to be able to speak to people. And I feel like I see it a lot, and you probably do too here at McCoy, that ever since like the COVID and everything, our generation is silent. Like
yeah. You see those reels about people in like Times Square from like 2007 talking to each other, and then 2024, just a phone up recording.
Dude. And I mean, going to classes is like that too. You'll see, I think in a marketing class I took like 2, maybe 3 semesters ago, with Denise Smart. She was the dean for a while until she retired. She brought in a really, really cool guy with like 4 degrees and everything. And he came in and he had done his own startups as well. He was very successful, and he came in and he was just ready to engage, he was being real big and everything, and just radio silence from everybody else.
Really?
Just crickets from the audience. And I felt bad for him because he really showed up and put everything out he was trying to make a difference. He was trying to help us, and just everybody was so scared to talk. People you have to get over that.
Yeah. Do you have any final words of wisdom or advice for somebody looking to start their own business?
I do. Here, I wrote down some. Yeah, you have to do it intelligently. Like, I think some people, they get a good idea and they just blow it out of proportion in their brains. Like you can't do a startup or start a business when you're thinking in your head, oh, I can't wait to IPO, or something like that. Like you cannot go into a business looking like that. You have to understand it's going to be a lot of hard work. It's really not glamorous. Like you're going to be working harder than you would for an employer, and you're going to get paid less, for a really long time until you get genuinely successful. And so, that was one thing I feel like is why I messed up on my scaling when I first started. Is I got so excited when they said yes that I started just jumping into things when I should have been intelligent about it, and I should have thought deeper on like the different ways to approach. And so if you have a good idea and you're going to try to start a business with it, I think that's genius. I think that's awesome. Everybody should try and start their own business at least once in their life, because imagine you do it right and you make a bunch of money, and then you don't have to work for anybody else for the rest of your life. You get to work for yourself and have something. But you really have to be intelligent about that. You have to be humble in that way. You can't let your mind blow things out of proportion. And not saying that it's bad to be excited about things, but it's bad to get overly excited about things.
Right.
You have to be real intelligent and emotionally like tranquil about stuff like that. So that would be one thing I say. And the other is learn accounting. and you think it's a joke, and it's funny. I'm not saying get an accounting degree, because most of what you're going to learn in an accounting degree is really in depth. And unless you're going to be an accountant or a CPA, like
FIFO, LIFO.
Yeah,
not necessary.
That's
who
not
knows
that
what
deep.
that is? Yeah,
that's not that deep. But like a lot of people, they like tax accounting and stuff like that is a lot deeper than you're mostly going to need. But like managerial accounting is super necessary for a business. Like you have to be able to budget. You have to be able to know what's wrong with your business and where you're like.
Just being able to read those numbers.
Exactly. Like I think the analysis of that is really important, and you're not going to get it immediately, and you don't have to, but I think accounting is just absolutely necessary for something like that. Not a degree, but learning the concepts of managerial accounting are really important to kind of monitor your business.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm happy to be here.
It's been pretty insightful. So, jumping into the news section. Tomorrow, Bobcat Bazaar. Don't miss it. LBJ Mall, literally right outside of the LBJ. It would be so hard to miss. From 2, right? Starts at 2, ends at 5, I think. Yeah. So from 2 to 5, 3 hours. If basically what it is it's a bunch of cool small businesses, small vendors trying to get their name out there, trying to do some business, help out the Bobcat community. Go down there, show your love, show your support. If you have a small business of your own and you're looking to get set up, message my good friend Connor Ward, or I can put you guys in touch with him. We'll actually just leave his email in the description below, per usual. Yeah, there we go. Much better way of doing that. But yeah, other things. We talked about Dr. Beverly. He's running a sort of pitch competition thing. Total prize is $7,000. First place gets $2,000. Second place $1,500. Then $1,000. Then $500. At least I think. Like the pricing somewhere around those lines. But yeah, it's good money. It's good money. So you guys should definitely sign up for that. We're gonna have the Google form to sign up for that in the description as well. So be sure to check that out. The final date for that is March 29th. But there are dates for there are other dates for like that you actually have to attend like certain like Zoom meetings for to qualify for it. Those will be like on the form when you register. So yeah, thank y'all for tuning in. Y'all take care.